welcome to episode 16 of the Darth Show. So, guys, thank you once again for joining me on another week of the Darth Show. So, guys, I hope y'all all had a really good week. I'm pretty sure I'd had a pretty good week as well. So, this week, I had a really fun, I had a week that, it's another week of this weekend. I didn't have a movie to go see in theaters. And, I need a little break. I'm all going to be seeing a movie next week. I'll be projecting next week. But I also got to see a screener. I've talked a little bit about that. Maybe not on a podcast. No, I actually haven't. Sorry about that. It is a little late for me doing this podcast. Since I don't have a movie to go see tomorrow, I can record this Monday night and give it to y'all a day or two early. But last week I got to go see a screener of a movie I'm going to be talking about in a minute. But I actually will not be talking a lot about the movie. I'll be doing that in the upcoming segment. So let's do a little refresher. I'm gonna start doing this every 5 episodes because sometimes you get different. It's nice to get a little recap of how the show works. So on the Darth Easy Show, we break down everything I do on the Darth Easy YouTube channel. On my end picture of each YouTube video, I have a thing that says. It says movies, TV, video games, anime, and books reviews. Those are what I review on my channel, and that's what I'm pretty much going to be doing to every episode. Sometimes I'll have some news if something big broke, like some Star Wars related, a comic book movie. Mostly that's going to revolve around if there's a big conference, but really there wasn't really. I'm not going to be doing news. I do a lot more news on the Easy K Show, a show I produce with Rainy Cage, fellow YouTuber. So, guys, let's begin with this show by first going to our first segment, the movies. This is everything going on in the movies that's going on in the theaters or in the classic movie reviews. And this week, I did not see a movie in theaters, mainly because I was going to go see The Glass Castle, but it's not playing in the theater near me. So, I will not be going to see The Glass Castle. I've heard I'm not missing much. So, the movie I will be talking about is my classic movie review of the week. And I'm about 10 minutes... or actually, it might be the most 20 minutes from seeing this movie for the very first time. And I popped my cherry. Yes, I popped the cherry of my Hitchcock. I had never seen an Alfred Hitchcock movie before. And I have popped it with North by NorthWest, the theme of the episode. And it is the main events. So when I was making this list out a few months ago, because I basically have every movie filled out for the rest of this year, I'm putting movies that I should be able to see next year as well. But I was thinking, I've always heard Alfred Hitchcock is one of the greatest directors of all time. And I'd never seen an Alfred Hitchcock movie, mainly because I'm not the biggest horror guy. But I've later learned that Hitchcock's not really a horror director, he's more of a thriller director. That kind of gets lumped together a lot, horror, thriller. And I like thriller movies. And what I really liked about North by NorthWest, it's a movie starring Cary Grant. And Cary Grant, I would say this was my first Cary Grant movie, but I can't say that anymore because a month ago I saw a movie called His Girl Friday. I saw it with my brother, and it's a comedy. It was made in the 1940s, and it was my first Cary Grant movie I've ever seen. And and this is a movie that was made in 1958, I believe. It's either 1958 or 1959. And what this movie is Cary Grant, he's a advertising madman. Anyways, he's an advertising guy he's at dinner or he's at a luncheon, and he gets kind of entangled into this kind of spy world. He gets mistaken as a top-notch spy, and now he has to try to dig himself out of it. He gets framed for murder. It's a very, very interesting movie. First off, it's a spy movie, and that's one thing. When I listened to another podcast called The Top 10 Show, and Matt Nose had put North by NorthWest in his list, and I didn't even know it was a spy movie, and it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. It's a thriller movie, it's a spy movie, and it's also a love story in the end. There's this girl in the movie, and I thought she did a really good job. I actually was Wikipediaing her a little bit later, and I found out that she voices Katara in Legend of Korra, the older version of Katara. So I found that pretty interesting. But I really, really like this movie. Just some of the visual shots in this movie was really, really cool. Like the scene of the crop duster as it flies by. I thought that was really cool. And then you also got to talk about some of just the car chase scenes whenever he's drunk and he's just driving on the road. Overall, I really, really like North by Northwest. I don't know what my grade's going to be on this movie. I'm going to probably have this review out on Wednesday since I missed my classic movie review schedule this week. Mostly because I saw 3 movies in theaters last week and I didn't have time to do a classic review watch. But this week I'm probably going to try to get really ahead of my classic movies schedule. I have a couple movies coming up. I'm going to be continuing my Indiana Jones reviews. I'm going to be watching Temple of Doom probably tomorrow. And then I'll be watching Goonies probably tomorrow night as well. And then I'll be doing something else on my channel as well. Alright, now it's time to move on to the TV segment. This is everything going on in the world of television that I am watching. And we first got to start out with everyone's favorite reality show, I guess, is Big Brother 19, episodes 20 through 22. This week's episode, we say goodbye to Jody. That's right, Jessica goes home. It's sad because, Jessica's pretty hot. And, and the one thing I liked about Jessica was she was playing a game. She was one of the few people actually playing a game. And I do feel like Cody probably ruined her game, but I hope Cody doesn't get out next week. Also, you had the last episode, you have Alex. I really liked Alex to begin with. I don't know if I like her so much anymore because she's basically being a puppet. She's playing Paul's game. But we'll see what really happens. I'll tell you a guy I'm starting to really like on Big Brother 19 is a guy, Mark. Mark is the only one in there who's like, Paul's the biggest threat in this game. If we don't take him out, we're idiots. And he's like, if you take off it's like what Coach always said. You take off the head of the dragon, and the dragon just falls apart. And it's going to be an interesting see how this show ends up for the rest of this season. Alright, next we gotta talk about Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, Season 4, Episode 21, North Korea, the U.S.-United States relationship. So this episode, John Oliver, he was talking about the South Carolina incident with the stupid white supremacist people who were boycotting the government from taking down the Confederate statues. I gotta talk about this because this is something that irks me. Because I was talking to a guy at work Saturday before I knew any of this stuff was going on. Because I don't really pay attention to news because, the news is really depressing. I mean, you have an idiot like Donald Trump as our president. I mean, I still don't understand how he got elected president, but that's a whole nother discussion for another time. And then basically, what happens is I don't believe they should be taking down the statues or the monuments of the Confederates. And I understand some people are just like, it's a representative slavery. Well, the statue that was being or the monument that was being protested was General E. Lee. And for people who don't know, General E. Lee was like a great nephew to George Washington. George Washington, the first president, I consider one of the greatest presidents of the United States history. And he wasn't just that. He was the general of the Confederate Army, but he was so much more than that. And I don't think you should take his stuff down because that's history. I'm a historian buff. I graduated with a history degree. And the thing I hate the most about it is that you tear down history. It's sad. But then you're giving them a great cause to take them down because you had the idiots, the Ku Klux Klan. You have the idiots of the American Nazis, the white supremacists, and then you have some terrorists. That's right, terrorists, because he wasn't people in the streets. It's despicable. It makes you ashamed of being a white person, a human, and just let this stuff go. Let it go. It's history. But you're going to take it down because these idiots are they're giving you a good reason to take it down because you have these idiots completely and utter supporting them. I'm sorry to rant about it, but it's just something I had to get off my chest. Anyways, back to John Oliver. John Oliver talked about how Trump wasn't mentioning it. He did kind of mention it today, I guess. That's why I was told. I actually haven't heard anything about it. But really, he's focused the most part of the episode on North Korea. North Korea and U.S. kind of butt heads with each other. North Korea says, "Oh, we're gonna kill y'all," and Trump's like, "It's like fire and blood." It's like he was watching Game of Thrones. He's like, "Fire and blood, I like it. I'm just gonna call it Fire and Fury. It's gonna be huge." So, though it was a funny episode of last week tonight with John Oliver. Now, the episode to talk about the most is Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 5, Eastwatch. This episode, more than any episode this season, even more than the first episode of the season, was setup. This was a setup episode to get us to Episode 6. And Episode 5, we basically you have Jamie's like, we can't beat him. And then Bran has a vision that the White Walkers are coming towards Eastwatch. And John's like, it's like, I have to go home. We have to get ready to fight these. And John's like, he's like, can you help us? Daenerys like, I can't leave the Southern Kingdom to Cersei. And then Tyrion's like, well, here's a good idea. How about we get a White Walker and we bring it to Cersei and to convince her into this armistice. And this is something I did not see coming. I thought at the end of this season, Cersei Lannister would be dead. The wall would fall down, and then last season would be the war between the Southern Kingdoms and the kingdoms of Westeros against the White Walkers. But I'm being astounded by the story group of Game of Thrones. It's just that's just something I did not see coming, and I loved some of the scenes we saw in this episode. Seeing Jaime and Tyrion together again, it's just such a great moment in this episode. And then Cersei, she's like, we can't beat Daenerys army to army. She's gonna beat us. We have to beat him like father would. And I like the logic in that. Also in this episode, you have, looks like Littlefinger's trying to set up Arya. She's trying to set up the Stark sisters against each other because chaos is a ladder, and it's cool to see. And then you had this magnificent Seven group going off north of the Wall to capture the White Walker. You have Jon Snow, the King of the North, Tormund Giantsbane, and then you have the three members of the Brotherhood, or two members. You have Thoros of Myr, you have Beric Dondarrion, the Hound, and then you also have Davos Seaworth. I think Davos is in the group. He may not be in the group, to be honest with you. And then I don't know if I mentioned, but you have Tormund Giantsbane, and finally, Gendry is not rowing that boat anymore, and he has a hammer. It was such a call. It's such a call out to the fans of the books because Robert Baratheon, he didn't use swords. He used the hammer. That's how he defeated Rhaegar at the Trident, and it's such a callback to the books. I love it. Good job, Game of Thrones, and I'm glad to see Gendry back on the show. And as Gendry was saying, it's like our fathers, they worked well together. We can work well together too, and I love that. And it's just cool seeing another Baratheon in the show. Next week it's going to be crazy. I bet next week's a 90-minute episode. It could be, it could not be, but it's going to be insane what happens next week. Alright, it's time to move on to video games. So I've been playing Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, been playing my org. I haven't really played much this week. I've been lazy, sleeping in late, and not really playing much. But I'm enjoying playing Skyrim once again. Now it's time to move on to anime. This is everything going on in the world of anime that I'm watching. And I am watching Boruto, episode 19, Sarada Uchiha. What's interesting is we're out of the filler, and I haven't actually minded the filler as much as I hated the filler in Naruto. But this filler I actually really liked on Boruto. And the main filler of this episode it's about Sarada. And I've actually read the manga to this. And this was a manga that came out way before the movie. It came out right after the Naruto manga ended. and I was really interested to see this translate into the anime. And it was a cool episode. We're setting up. Sarada's gonna get to meet her father, meet Sasuke. Sarada, she's like, are you my mother? Because I don't really believe it. And then Sasuke, she punches the ground, breaks the house down. She's like, oh, you haven't paid the loan back, and then she passes out. That was a very funny moment. And I'm curious what's going to happen. I mean, I know what happens from manga. That was a cool thing about the watching the beginning of the anime, was I didn't really know what was going to happen. So I'll be interested to see what happens next. Now it's time to move on to books. I'm reading Star Wars Inferno Squad. I haven't really read too much more than what I read the week when I did this show. Books still very, very good. We have our right now they're in a hotel. It looks like they're going after rebel sympathizers in the book. I'm really liking Inferno Squad so far. And that ends the book segment. Now it's time to end the show with upcoming. So next week, coming out in theaters, is the Hitman's Bodyguard. And this is the movie I got to go see with Randy Cage on my first ever screener. My screener experience was very interesting. I'll probably talk a little more about that next week. But I liked the movie. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I think it's worth seeing. I do have a review of it, so make sure you check out that right now. But I'll talk spoilers next week. And the other movie, which I will be seeing, which is a movie I actually didn't know it was coming out, is Logan Lucky. Logan Lucky is a movie starring Daniel Craig, Adam Driver, Channing Tatum, and it's basically it's like a heist movie. That's basically what this movie is. So it looks very interesting. I'm curious to see it. And that ends. And also, I almost forgot to mention this. Defenders Season 1 premieres on Netflix this Friday. And I cannot wait to see this show. Because, it's everything that's been leading up to. From Daredevil, from Luke Cage, to Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist. We've been promised this Defenders. And it's kind of be the television version of the Avengers. Can it be good? Will it live up to the hype? I don't know. Because last season, the last Netflix show, actually even the last 2 Netflix shows were disappointing. I thought Luke Cage, I thought the first 6 episodes were brilliant. I thought after that it just fell apart. And then Iron Fist, I don't really blame the people around it. It's just the guy who did the last few seasons of Dexter, Scott Buck. I'm interested in Defenders, but I'm gonna keep my expectations a little low, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm mainly looking forward to next week's episode of Game of Thrones even more. So guys, that ends episode 16 of the Darth VC show. So guys, make sure, if you're not doing it already, make sure you subscribe to the Darth VC YouTube channel and tell your friends about Easy Nation. That's the only way this channel is going to grow. Unless you tell someone to subscribe, share it on Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media you use, make sure you use it. And speaking of which, follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is DarthEasy2 on Twitter. I post updates occasionally, not as much lately, to be perfectly honest. Also, you can support me on Patreon if you so wish. And that really ends this week's episode, guys. So guys, until next week, all too easy, and take care. Bye.